Boy oh day, does this album kind of take me back. Go back to memory lane a little bit, all the way back to 1995. An 11-year-old CKN would have been the 11-year-old that would have checked out this album, which is Land of the Free by Gamma Ray. This is coming at a time in the 1990s where power metal overseas is certainly doing quite well, and it's a spot in history where you can really see power metal starting to really swell and get a lot of great bands sort of their first couple of albums underneath their belts. Either that, or in this case, really start to hit their stride. With Gamma Ray's album here, with Land of the Free, you definitely can tell where the sound has already been solidified, and you know exactly where Gamma Ray is kind of going with things, but they still are able to hit you with surprises like on this album, like having the longest track be the first song with Rebellion in Dreamland. And this is just a fantastic way to start off this album. It sets up the story and really sets up all of the events that are going to take place on the remainder of this semi-conceptual album, and it gives it a lot of earth, it gives it a lot of real movement, it gives it a lot of fluidity right there from the start. These are 8.5 minutes that are not meant just to set up a story that is, very blandly. It's instead one that's going to use its kinesis. It's going to use those power metal riffs, that aggressive shredding, and that fantastic double drumming that just gives it a lot of power. It gives it a lot of oomph right along the way. In the middle part of the 90s, this was a little bit commonplace, setting things up in this variety, but Gamma Ray always seemed to feel like they had a leg up, and it always seemed like right from the start they stood alongside of peers such as Blind Guardian. And it's because, obviously, of the membership that they actually shared at one point. But either way, with that, throughout this album, the surprises that you begin to receive from the band is the way in which neoclassical riffing is able to sprout itself in from time to time in order to really break some of the monotony, but at the same time also the way in which the storytelling element is handled. You have a couple of shorter tracks that are used to be sort of bridges between one track to the next. And while we have seen things like this before, such as on Nightfall in Middle Earth, for example, by Blind Guardian, this was where Gamma Ray was able to really take their story and showcase it as a linear style novel, or a linear style expression. And that's one of the strengths that is really possessed by Land of the Free. It's an album that is not only strong musically in its material, but also it's very strong in the way in which it's put together. Remember what I've said for years and years, how the flow of the album is very much like a river. This is one that is able to get from point A to point B very smoothly. However, the events that take place within that smooth ride, that's where your rocks, that's where your silt, that's where your dams, that's where your hurricanes, that's where all of the problems really lie. But that's okay. That's simply plot of a story. That's got nothing to do with the overall flow of the album, which is actually very, very well done. Land of the Free is a great example that these German power metalers, should I say, had a lot of gas in the tank. They had a lot of ideas in their brains. The album cover is super duper cool, and you would see examples of that also with albums such as Power Plant, and later on with No World Order. They had it. They had the it factor, and power metal fans were eating it up and loving it, and they were becoming a very well-respected power metal band. And an album such as Land of the Free is able to really solidify that, really set it in stone, based off of how they were able to handle the concept record. And they did that with Land of the Free extremely well. We, of course, got a sequel later on down the line, in fact, much later on down the line. But either way, we were very happy with this one whenever it came, and we still are happy with it today. This is an album that if you don't know much about power metal, I would certainly recommend it to see if it is something that is directly for you. It's not like listening to Twilight Force and immediately getting assaulted with some very, very random things that you certainly didn't expect, and certainly sounds like the purveyors of such such bands are having a little bit too much fun with their cosplay or whatever the hell they're doing. They're LARPing. But this is a band that definitely is a great introduction to power metal alongside of groups such as Blind Guardian. However, Land of the Free might be a great example as to what power metal can deliver. It's not necessarily just aggressive sounding, speed metal. This also has a lot of heart to it, and you're going to get a little bit of everything whenever you pick this one up. So I highly recommend it. I know it's from '95, and we're here in 2017, so we're 22 years in the future, but it's still a great album today, and one that you should pick up if you have the opportunity.